What happens when the world suddenly sees the one who's always been invisible? She came just to serve at the charity ball. Quiet, unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. But one fall, one twist of fate, would change her life forever. And when she opened her eyes, she wasn't in the ballroom anymore. She was in his suite. In the grand ballroom of the Rose Hill estate, chandeliers sparkled like fallen stars and violins whispered melodies of elegance. The air smelled of expensive perfume, aged wine and polished wood. Laughter danced through the marbled halls as high society guests clinked glasses and flaunted tailored suits and gowns sewn in silence by invisible hands. Among them moved a girl with unsure steps. Her name was Lena Thompson. She wasn't here to dance or dazzle. She was part of the behind-the-scenes crew, one of the dozens hired for the evening to carry trays of canapés, refill champagne glasses, and vanish into shadows before being noticed. Her black dress was simple, her shoes a size too big, and her name tag was slightly crooked. She had rehearsed her smile in the mirror that morning but hadn't used it once since arriving. Lena had always been the quiet one, too shy to speak up, too polite to stand out. Orphaned young and raised by an aunt who barely spoke, Lena knew silence intimately. She had grown up folding her dreams into paper cranes and letting them drift away. The charity ball was for a cause she believed in, children without homes. But she never imagined she'd feel more alone in a room full of people than she did in her tiny studio apartment. She moved carefully, keeping her eyes lowered, barely noticing the golden plaque at the head of the ballroom. In honor of Thomas Valemont, philanthropist, visionary, and the heart behind Valemont Holdings. Everyone knew his name. Billionaire. Theo. The man who had turned tragedies into triumphs by donating millions to build schools, hospitals, and shelters. But few had ever seen him. He was known for his reclusive nature, attending only the most important events. Silently, distantly, always watching from the margins. As fate would have it, he was watching now. Standing behind a velvet curtain on the upper mezzanine, Thomas Valemont had come only to observe. He loathed these gatherings, empty chatter, rehearsed sympathies, fake smiles. But this one mattered. It had his mother's name etched into its soul. His sharp eyes scanned the room until they settled, oddly, on her. Not on the heiress in emerald laughing too loudly, or the actor trying to impress the press near the bar. No. His gaze found Lena. She was different. Not because she was beautiful, though she was in a quiet, rain-on-glass kind of way. It was the way she held herself, as if she were used to being invisible, as if she didn't belong. But more than anything, she looked like she cared. Thomas found himself watching her longer than he intended. Down below, Lena felt the edges of her vision blur. The lights, the noise, the pressure, it was too much. She hadn't eaten since the morning, had barely sipped water all day, and her anxiety had grown into a storm inside her chest. She tried to breathe through it. Still, keep moving. But the room began to spin. She clutched the edge of her tray, blinking rapidly, trying to hold on to the moment. Just 5 more steps, she thought. Then I'll go to the back. I just need a minute. But her knees buckled. The tray slipped. A crash of glasses broke the laughter. Then gasp. Lena collapsed to the floor, her dark hair fanning across the polished tiles. The world dissolved into silence. Everything froze. People stared. Whispers started. She just fainted. Is she okay? Someone call security. But before anyone else moved, he did. Thomas descended the mezzanine stairs faster than anyone had seen him move in years. A silent urgency swept through him as he reached her side. He knelt down, brushed her hair gently from her face, and looked into the pale cheeks of a stranger who had just stolen his attention without trying. She's dehydrated, he said calmly. Call Dr. Hughes. Bring her to the suite upstairs. Now. No one questioned him. He was Thomas Valemont. The room was dim, warm, and wrapped in quiet when Lena stirred awake. Her eyes fluttered open to soft bedding beneath her, silk sheets, and the scent of clean linen. Confusion set in fast. Where was she? This wasn't the ballroom. The last thing she remembered was the sound of shattering glass. Then darkness. As she sat up slowly, the door opened, and in walked a man. Tall, composed, dressed in a charcoal suit that seemed stitched from elegance itself. His eyes were sharp yet kind. Familiar. She'd seen him once, in a newspaper article on community housing. Good. You're awake, he said gently. I'm Thomas Valemont. Her breath caught. She tried to sit straighter, stammering. I am sorry. I didn't mean to faint or ruin the event. Please don't fire me, He held up a hand, a soft smile playing at the corner of his lips. You didn't ruin anything, miss. Lena Thompson. Well, Lena, you gave quite the scare. But you're safe now. She blinked, overwhelmed. Why am I here? You fainted. Dehydration. Overworked, I'd guess. I had my physician check on you. You needed rest. My suite was the quietest place. Lena lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. No one had ever gone out of their way for her like this. Especially not someone like him. Thomas leaned against the wall, studying her. You didn't look like the others down there. Her brow furrowed. Because I was working. No, he said simply. Because you looked like you were listening. She bit her lip, unsure what he meant. He continued, voice quieter now. You cared. That's rare in that room. The silence stretched gently between them. Thomas turned toward the door but paused. You should rest. When you're better. I'd like to talk. He left her there, stunned, heart racing. Who was this man? And why had he noticed her, of all people? That night, as the lights of the city shimmered outside the penthouse windows, Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her life had always been predictable. Quiet, repetitive, small. She wasn't meant for rooms like this or conversations with billionaires. But something had changed. And something told her. This was only the beginning. The morning sun slipped through the sheer curtains like a whispered secret, painting soft gold onto the walls of the private suite. Lena sat curled up in the luxurious bed, her heart still fluttering from last night's events. Her eyes wandered to the door, half expecting Thomas Valemont to walk in again. His voice calm, his presence unshakable. She had been nothing but a waitress, a nobody in a room of people who measured others by status and style. And yet he had seen her. Not just noticed, seen her. That thought lingered like an echo, both comforting and terrifying. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. The door opened slowly and a woman entered, elegantly dressed in soft gray, clipboard in hand, and a kind smile on her face. Good morning, Miss Thompson. I'm Ilara, Mr. Valemont's assistant. He asked me to check on you. There's breakfast if you're feeling up to it. Lena nodded, her voice still quiet. Thank you. I think I'm okay. Ilara motioned toward a covered tray on the coffee table. He made sure the chef prepared something light. Fruit, oatmeal, herbal tea. Lena hesitated, then asked, Did I really stay here all night? You did. Mr. Valemont insisted. He's not usually. How do I say this? He doesn't get involved with guests, not even at his own events. But with you, it was different. Different. The word stayed with her as Ilara stepped out, leaving her to eat in silence. Why her? By the time Lena dressed in a clean set of clothes left in the guest closet, her nerves were a tangled mess. She found herself walking slowly down the hallway Ilara had directed her toward. Polished wood floors, quiet art-lined walls, and not a single hint of dust. Everything about the space screamed power and taste. She turned a corner and paused at a tall open doorway. Inside was a sprawling home office with high ceilings and towering bookshelves, and at its center, seated behind a massive oak desk, was Thomas. He stood when he saw her, his eyes softening. You look better, he said. I feel better, she replied, still unsure what to do with her hands. He gestured toward the seat across from him. Please. She sat, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. I'm sorry if I caused a scene, she began. It wasn't professional. Thomas shook his head. No apology necessary. If anything, I should thank you. You reminded me last night why I started that charity in the first place. Lena's brow furrowed. What do you mean? He leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. You listened. You weren't there to impress or perform. You saw those children's pictures on the gallery wall like they mattered. Lena remembered. There had been a row of framed photos, orphans who'd found homes through the foundation. She had stopped for a moment while refilling glasses, letting herself feel something. I was one of them, he continued. A foster kid. Bounced from place to place until someone finally gave me a chance. I never forgot that. Her eyes widened. You? He nodded. It's not something I talk about often. But I built Valemont Holdings to prove that pasts don't define us. Still, the higher you climb, the more people around you wear masks. Last night you didn't. Lena looked down, cheeks burning. You're different, he said softly. And I don't say that lightly. She swallowed the lump in her throat. No one had ever said that to her before. Not and meant it. The next few days unfolded like a strange dream. Thomas didn't send her away. Instead, he offered her a temporary stay. Until you've fully recovered. But Lena sensed something deeper, though he never said it aloud. He asked her questions about her life. Her favorite books. Her childhood. He listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel like her words had value. They took walks in the rooftop garden. Ate quiet meals in a glass dining room overlooking the city. One evening, he asked if she'd like to visit one of the shelters his foundation funded. Her eyes lit up, and he noticed. What surprised Lena most was how normal he was beneath the polished surface. She once caught him laughing at an old sitcom rerun, feet propped up, a bowl of popcorn in his lap. Another night, he stayed up late fixing a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom himself. I used to be a handyman's assistant, he had said with a grin. Old habits die hard. Every moment spent with him was like discovering a page in a book she never knew existed, a story unfolding, slow and tender. But in the quiet corners of her mind, a question whispered, why me? Why now? And that question began to grow. It was on the fourth night after dinner that Thomas said something that shifted the ground beneath her. They were sitting in the lounge, a soft jazz record playing in the background, when he looked over at her and said, You're not just passing through, Lena. I can feel it. She looked up, startled. What do you mean? I don't believe in coincidences, he said simply. I think the universe sends us reminders. People. Moments. You fainted at the exact second I stopped believing any of this mattered. And now, here you are. Lena's heart thundered in her chest. She wanted to say something back. Anything. But before she could, he stood up and left the room, leaving only his words behind. Later that night, she wandered into the small library just off the main hallway. She traced her fingers along the spines of old classics, pausing at a worn copy of Great Expectations. Big dreams, she whispered. Behind her a voice said, They suit you. She turned to see Thomas standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her with a softness she was beginning to recognize. You don't have to live small, Lena, he said. Not anymore. Her eyes welled up without warning. And just like that she realized something. This man, this millionaire everyone feared or admired from a distance, was lonely, just like her. He had walls built sky high, and yet, here he was, letting her in. It wasn't just kindness. It wasn't charity. It was something else. Something she was too afraid to name yet. But what Lena didn't know was that someone was watching, and that her presence in Thomas's life was stirring something dangerous from the past. Because when a man like Thomas lets his guard down, enemies smell the vulnerability. And not everyone was happy to see her in his world. Lena felt like she was walking a tightrope between dreams and disbelief. Each morning brought with it a calm kind of magic. Breakfasts in the glass room with Thomas, quiet conversations about literature and life, shared silences that felt far louder than words. And yet, just beneath the surface of that still water, something stirred. Thomas had grown distant over the past few days. He wasn't cold, just guarded. She'd catch him staring out windows, his jaw clenched, his eyes haunted. And every time she asked if something was wrong, he'd shake his head with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. But one afternoon, she overheard a conversation. She had been walking past the study when she heard Thomas's voice, low and serious. "I don't care who leaked it, Benjamin. I want it handled. If this reaches Lena, it's over. She's been through enough." There was a pause. "No. She doesn't know anything yet." Lena froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "Leaked what?" She stepped back quietly, heart pounding, slipping into her guest room before anyone saw her. She sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of those words sinking in. Why would Thomas hide something from her? What didn't she know? That night she couldn't sleep. She wandered through the halls of the penthouse, seeking comfort in the silence. But something urged her toward the study, the same room where the conversation had happened. It was late. He'd be asleep by now. The door creaked open under her hand. Inside, the room glowed faintly under the light of the city through the tall windows. The desk was tidy, but a leather folder lay half open on top. Her eyes drifted to it and then froze. Her name was on the first page. Lena Thompson. Full background report. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were documents, photos, even a copy of her high school records, notes about her job at the restaurant, her orphan status, foster homes, medical history, everything. He felt sick. He'd known who she was all along. The next morning, Thomas found her on the rooftop garden, sitting alone under the pergola. He could see the storm in her eyes even before she spoke. "You investigated me." He said nothing at first, just slowly sat down beside her. "I didn't mean for it to happen that way," he said quietly. "After you fainted, I had my team look into you. I needed to know who you were, that you weren't a threat," she finished bitterly. "No," his voice cracked. "That you weren't another person pretending to care." She turned away, hurt flashing in her expression. "So instead, you invaded my life before I even had the chance to offer you honesty." Thomas ran a hand through his hair. "Lena, in my world people lie. They smile, they flatter, they sell their stories to tabloids. I couldn't afford to let someone get that close without knowing the truth. And the more I read, the more I realized you were nothing like the others." "Then why didn't you just tell me?" she whispered. He looked at her, pain in his gaze. "Because I didn't want to lose you before I had the chance to really have you." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she said nothing. She needed space. Thomas gave it to her. Days passed, and the penthouse felt colder, quieter. She avoided shared spaces, barely ate, and wandered the halls like a ghost. But then, something happened that would change everything. One afternoon, while flipping through the channels absent-mindedly, she stumbled upon a news report. A headline crawled across the bottom. "Valemont Holdings faces internal scandal. Rumors of insider sabotage emerge." Lena sat up straight. The report showed images of Thomas walking out of his headquarters, cameras flashing. The reporter's voice was urgent. "Sources suggest someone from within Valemont Holdings has been leaking private documents, possibly in connection to the recent sudden drop in investor trust." Lena's thoughts raced. Is this what he was hiding? Was that report about me used against him? Her stomach twisted. Could she have been the weak link? That evening, for the first time in days, she knocked on Thomas's door. He looked surprised, but he stepped aside and let her in. "Is it true?" she asked. "The news?" Thomas sighed, closing the door behind them. "Yes. Someone's trying to ruin everything we've built. And I think it started the night of the charity ball." Lena's heart sank. "Because of me?" "No," he said firmly. "Because someone saw me care. And in this world, when people see you feel, they come after the thing that made you feel." He walked to a small safe in the corner and pulled out a flash drive. "There's something else I never showed you." Lena watched as he plugged it into the laptop. On screen appeared a video. Grainy security footage. It was from the charity ball. She saw herself fainting. Then Thomas rushing forward. But just as the crowd swarmed, a figure slipped into the hallway. Tall, suited, face just barely out of view. That man, Thomas said, pointing, was once my partner. Julian Crane. I pushed him out of the company 2 years ago after I discovered he was siphoning charity funds. And now he's back. Lena felt a chill crawl down her spine. He planted someone at the event. I think they triggered your fainting somehow. Maybe tampered with the drinks. Anything to create a distraction. And while I carried you upstairs, he planted something in my office. Lena stared at the screen. Why would he do that? To make me vulnerable. Catch me off guard. And then, to use you against me. Suddenly it all made sense. The warmth, the protection, the fear behind Thomas's eyes. He wasn't just trying to guard his empire. He was trying to protect her. That night, Lena sat by herself under the stars on the rooftop terrace. Her heart was a war zone of emotions. Anger, love, betrayal, fear. But beneath it all was something unshakable. Trust. Not blind trust. Not perfect faith. But the trust that comes from knowing someone's soul, even when they've made mistakes. She knew Thomas had done wrong by investigating her. But she also knew what it meant for someone like him to care at all. To feel when the world demanded numbness. And maybe, just maybe, that was something worth fighting for. But war was coming. And Lena was no longer the shy girl who fainted at a ball. She was the storm waiting in silence. The morning air carried a sharp chill, as if the city itself sensed the gathering storm. Lena stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, watching raindrops trace broken lines across the glass. Her reflection looked stronger today. Older somehow. In the background, Thomas was on the phone, voice hard and clipped. No, we can't let the board panic. We hold steady. I'll speak at the press conference tomorrow. And Julian? He doesn't get the last word. Lena turned toward him, silently studying the lines of exhaustion on his face. He hadn't slept. Neither had she. Thomas ended the call and finally looked at her. They want me to step down. Her breath hitched. Step down. You've built everything. He nodded. That's exactly why they're afraid. They think I've grown too emotional. That loving you, caring at all, makes me a liability. Lena's throat tightened. Do you regret meeting me? His answer came without hesitation. Never. If I had to lose everything to have 5 more minutes with you, I would. She stepped toward him. Then don't lose it. Fight back. His brows raised. With what? With the truth. That afternoon, Lena sat in front of Thomas's PR team and lawyers, surprising everyone when she requested to speak on record. I want to share my story, she said. I want people to know who I really am, not just the girl who fainted at a charity ball. The room buzzed with objections. Thomas's lawyer nearly burst into panic. Miss Thompson, this could backfire. You have no media training, no public image. Exactly, she said calmly. They'll see a real person, not a press release. Thomas watched her in awe. The girl who used to hide in restaurant kitchens to avoid attention now stood tall before an army of suits. Let her speak, he finally said. She's not here to defend me. She's here to tell the truth. The interview aired that night. A sit-down with a popular journalist, filmed in the quiet glow of the penthouse lounge. Lena, wearing a simple navy dress, looked straight into the camera and began. I didn't know who Thomas Valemont was the night I fainted. I didn't even want to go to the ball. I was just a server at a local restaurant, filling in because someone else got sick. I was nervous, overwhelmed, and exhausted. I hadn't eaten all day. I didn't belong there. She paused, voice softening. But when I collapsed, he didn't see a nobody. He didn't step over me like so many others had. He carried me to safety. He called doctors. He stayed by my side. A clip played, security footage from the ball. Thomas cradling her in his arms as chaos bloomed around them. Lena continued, voice firm now. I found out later that he had me investigated. And yes, it hurt. But I also learned why. Because he lives in a world where people pretend to love you for your name, not your soul. And I think he just wanted to believe someone could care for him without a price tag. The camera zoomed in. Her next words were spoken with conviction. I didn't fall in love with the billionaire. I fell in love with the broken boy behind the billion-dollar walls. Social media exploded. Hashtag real love. Hashtag Lena speaks. Hashtag Valemont truth. By morning the tides had turned. Investors began to rally. The board wavered. And Julian Crane, who had planned a press drop of a fake scandal, was suddenly the one under scrutiny. But success came at a price. The more Lena appeared in public, the more her past was dragged into the spotlight. Online trolls picked apart her life. Photos from her foster homes. Old classmates giving anonymous interviews. One article even called her Cinderella in disguise, too fragile for the glass slipper. Shook her. But what shook her more was the bouquet of dead lilies left at the penthouse door. No note, no signature, just a black ribbon. Thomas stormed the building, security cameras combed, protocols tightened, but there was no footage of who left it. Lena's hands trembled as she held the wilted stems. This isn't just about business anymore, she whispered. Thomas took the flowers and crushed them in one hand. No, it's about power. And fear. That night, Thomas gathered her things and moved her to his estate in the countryside, a private mansion far from the city, guarded and gated. It was beautiful, but it felt like a cage. They were safe, but not free. For days, Lena wandered through gardens and empty halls, wondering if she had done the right thing. Then one morning a package arrived for her. Inside, a music box. And a note. You don't belong in his world. Look away. Or you'll disappear like your mother. Lena dropped the note, hands shaking. Her breath turned to ice. Her mother. She'd never known her. She only had one blurry photo from a social worker's file. She had always been told her mother abandoned her as a baby. But this was something else entirely. She rushed to Thomas, holding out the note. Who would write this? His face turned pale. He took the paper, read it, then closed his eyes for a long time. I was hoping we wouldn't have to go this deep, he said grimly. But if Julian is dragging your family into this, it means he knows something I don't. He pulled a dusty folder from his personal archives. Lena. Your mother's name was Elise Thompson. She was an intern at Valemont Holdings 25 years ago. Lena's world spun. What? Thomas laid down a photo. Elise, young, smiling, identical to Lena. She disappeared without a trace after whistleblowing a financial fraud case. The case never made it to court. The file vanished. So did she. Lena clutched the photo, tears forming. She didn't abandon me, she was taken. Thomas looked at her, his voice dark. Julian might know what happened. And now that you're close to the truth, he's scared. Lena stood under the moonlight that night, looking at the vast lake behind the estate. Her reflection shimmered across the still water. For most of her life, she thought she was invisible. A girl with no voice, no past, no place. But now she knew better. She came from a woman who had dared to fight. A mother who vanished trying to do what was right. And Lena would not run. Not anymore. She walked back into the house and found Thomas standing in the hall. I'm going back, she said. He turned slowly. To the city. To the truth. His jaw tightened. Lena, it's dangerous. Julian won't stop until we expose him. She stepped closer, fire in her eyes. I'm not afraid of him anymore. I'm not the girl who fainted at a charity ball. I'm the daughter of the woman he tried to erase. Thomas took her hand. And in that quiet moment, two broken hearts became a single force, ready to rise, ready to burn through lies. Together. The city was dressed in silence when Lena returned. Not the hush of peace, but the eerie stillness before a storm. Fog clung to the buildings like ghosts unwilling to leave. Thomas tightened his grip on her hand as they stepped out of the car. Her eyes scanned the Valemont Holdings building, once a symbol of untouchable power, now a battlefield. Inside, the staff avoided eye contact. Whispers floated through hallways. They all knew something was coming. Thomas led her to the executive conference room. "Everything's ready," he whispered. The room was filled with board members, journalists, and Julian Crane, smirking at the head of the table like a king on his throne. "Didn't expect to see her again," Julian said, voice slick. "I assumed she'd be hiding behind your money by now." Lena stepped forward before Thomas could reply. "No, I don't hide anymore. Especially not from cowards who build empires on lies." Gasps rippled through the room. Julian laughed. "Feisty. But I think we all know this little sob story of yours is just a play for sympathy. You're nothing, Lena. Just a charity case who got lucky." Lena held up a file and slammed it on the table. "Then let's talk about luck." She opened it, revealing old ledger copies, photos, a dusty ID badge. "My mother, Elise Thompson, worked for this company. She found a hidden account, one Julian Crane was embezzling from, and reported it. Days later, she disappeared." Julian's smirk wavered. Lena looked around the room, voice clear. "She was labeled a runaway. A woman who abandoned her child. But she was silenced. And I believe the man behind that silence is sitting right here. Where's your proof?" Julian barked, sweat breaking on his brow. Thomas stood now, laying out surveillance footage from a private investigator. "We traced a series of shell companies tied to a payout made the week Elise vanished. The account was under a fake name, R. Crane." The board murmured. Julian's face went pale. "Coincidence?" Lena's eyes burned into his. "Coincidences don't send death threats. Or deliver music boxes with warnings." Then she pulled out the final piece. "Small USB. And here's your voice. Your threat. You should have never used the same burner phone twice." Thomas hit play. Julian's voice echoed through the room. "She walks away, or she disappears like her mother." Silence fell. A single board member stood. "Effective immediately. Julian Crane is suspended from all Valemont operations pending a full investigation." Security escorted him out as Julian hissed and struggled. "You think this is over? I built this place." But no one listened. Lena exhaled a breath she'd been holding for years. Later that night, Thomas and Lena returned to the penthouse. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. He poured 2 glasses of wine and joined her on the balcony. "You were incredible today," he said quietly. She smiled, eyes glimmering. "I didn't think I could do it. But I heard her voice. My mother's. In my heart. She never left me." He reached into his pocket, pulling out something small. A ring. Simple, elegant. A single diamond set in gold. Thomas knelt. "Lena, when I found you at that ball, I thought I was rescuing a stranger. But it turns out you saved me. You reminded me what it means to love, to trust, to feel. I don't want this world without you in it. Will you marry me?" Tears pooled in her eyes. She nodded. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." 6 months later, Lena stood in a soft ivory gown beneath an arch of white roses. The garden estate was filled with people. Friends, staff, neighbors, everyone who had watched her journey from shadows to light. As Thomas slid the ring on her finger, she whispered, "My heart was always waiting for you." He kissed her, and the world melted away. In the distance, a woman in a gray shawl stood by a tree. Her face, weathered by time, bore familiar eyes. Lena saw her, froze. The woman gave a slight nod, then disappeared into the trees. Was it real? A vision? A blessing? Lena didn't know. But she smiled. Somehow, she knew her mother was watching.